Welcome to the Salt Strong Fishing Podcast. Salt Strong has been helping saltwater anglers catch more fish in less time for 10 years and is now the largest and most trusted saltwater fishing community in America. If you want to catch more saltwater fish, then keep listening. If you want to speed up your fish catching results even faster, then join the private insider community at saltstrong.com. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
God and gold. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, like diamonds, back again, Salt Strong Unchurched. Some really exciting news. If you haven't heard, Luke and I have officially sold Salt Strong, but we're still on board. We signed a long-term agreement, feel like we've got the best partners possible, and I'm going to share a little bit about how the whole thing happened. It's pretty wild. The whole thing started 7 years ago, if you can believe, a little over 7 years ago, and now just came to fruition exactly like we had written down our goal and prayed on literally every single morning for 7 years. And crazy how it all happened. So I'll give a little bit of the background on the Salt Strong thing real quick. It was a very great deal. Some people think, oh man, you have to sell because things are going bad. No, it was an excellent deal. We were having a great year. And truthfully, ever since we got over like 50,000 members, for whatever reason, that was kind of a magical number for us in terms of getting deals and people reaching out to us, right? If you're a small company or a fledgling, brand new, startup or a small business, no one wants to talk to you, right? You're new and you don't have any credibility. You don't have much of a business, a lot of customers yet. And, as you grow, it changes, right? You build momentum, you build relationships, and there is some tipping point, if you will, in most businesses where all of a sudden people are now reaching out to you. They want to do deals with you and they want to partner up with you, et cetera. And so for the last couple of years, ever since we hit 50,000 members, we've been approached a lot. And I mean a lot. Sometimes it's like multiple times a week by just, random investors. And a lot of them are just kicking tires. But there's been a couple that we've at least entertained. And one rule that Luke and I always had was we would never sell any or all shares to like private equity or venture capital group. And what that normally means, if you've heard about really bad deals, it's, when you get private equity, meaning it's just, I call it fast money, meaning they're just going to try to make it as profitable as fast as possible and sell it as fast as possible for the biggest return to their investors. And that usually means they take shortcuts, they fire a lot of people, they change the culture, et cetera. So we didn't want any part of that. And most of the people reaching out, like 98% of them, were just that. And so we're like, no, not a chance. This one group, though, actually were already inside the community and very familiar with us and already love what we were doing. Turned out to be a family office. I'm not allowed to share the details, but it's a Christian family, a very Christian family, and a well-known, in my opinion, a billionaire family who are very openly Christian and very openly conservative and God-fearing people, and the kind of people that you want to be around, would love to have reach out to you. And it turned out it was something that I did and reached out to them that kind of triggered the event to at least start discussions, which I'll share about in a little bit. But man, it really is just a blessing when you have someone like that, like a family office that is very more long-term, like they're basically trying to build wealth for their great grandkids, right? Like think like Rockefellers, right? Where, it wasn't about, hey, how quickly can I make a buck when you're the richest person in the world? It was, how do I make sure that we protect this money, do the right thing with it, give back, et cetera, and that, our great grandkids will still be benefiting from it. So it's one of those long-term deals, and it's it really has been just awesome. And we obviously have a way different view in the driver's seat because we've been talking with them for many, many months, and this didn't just happen overnight. And anyhow, they're still excited about Unchurched. They don't want us to stop that stuff. They don't want us to stop C12, like all the things that were really important to Luke and I. Like, they're like, why would we? It wasn't even like a discussion. Like, why would we want you to stop that? That's who you are. So it was really, really cool. Whereas you get like private equity, they're like, oh man, well, you're talking about God and stuff on a podcast, and It's our brand, and we don't want anything to do with that. And they're the opposite. They're like, man, this is who we are. It's who you guys are. Go for it. Do it louder. So anyhow, really, really pumped about that. So to answer your first question you might be having if you're an Unchurched listener, one, thank you. And two, it's not going away. If it did, it would be something that I decided to do if I ever took a break, but I'm still loving it. I honestly get value from every one of these. And as I've shared with you before, same reason I wrote that book, Fishing for Happiness. One, it was good to just get all these ideas and thoughts and just life lessons out there and kind of out on paper too. I do it for my kids. Selfishly, I know they're all going to go through similar problems like I talked about, from anxiety attacks and, alcohol. For some people, it's easy to just have a beer or two, and some people it's not, right? And I've struggled with things like that. To thoughts on love and thoughts on God and thoughts on faith. I think all of us, as you go through especially your 20s and 30s, you're finally out of kind of the teenager year. And if you went to college, you're all of a sudden out of college and school, and all of a sudden you're like, well, man, this whole making money thing isn't as cool as I thought it was going to be. It was actually cooler when I was, in 8th grade and didn't have to do anything except show up for school and do a little homework. Life can get complicated really quick. And as you have parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles, die and dealing with cancer and kids and spouses, relationships in general, the whole thing can be very overwhelming. And there's not like a great book out there I think you can just give. And so that was another reason I wrote that book, and even doing some of these podcasts, to make sure that my kids have at least something from me. I hope I'm obviously still around for many, many, many years, and my grandkids will be able to hear it from me personally. But worst case, if not, the stuff's documented, and I can share it with them. So let's get back into kind of the gist of this podcast. It's God and goals, and I'll throw dreams in there as well, right? Because a lot of the goals that we write down in life come from different dreams, and I don't necessarily mean dreaming like I have to explain to my son Jackson when I say dreaming. I was like, man, you have big dreams, dude. And he's like, well, how do you know that when you're sleeping? I was like, no, you could be sitting out on a kayak in the middle of the ocean and have really big dreams, just thinking about what you want to do in life and the impact you want to have, et cetera. Like, dreaming can happen while you're awake or asleep. Sometimes you do have those visions while you're sleeping. So I'm talking about just dreaming in general, about things that excite you, things that you feel like God put you on this earth to do, regardless of your age, regardless if you think you're in your very last chapter or your very first chapter in life. If you're here, God still has a reason for you, right? I say that all the time. If God still has you on this earth, there's a reason he wants you here. It means he ain't done with you yet. So back to the goals. It was a little over 7 years ago. I had spent a lot of time trying to think about the future of Salt Strong. We didn't really have a clear vision, and I knew my really most important and critical job is the CEO. And if you're CEO of a business or even your household, your number one job is to create a clear vision of where you're going, right? And a good analogy would be, let's just say you're on a road trip and just with your family, and they're like, Mom, Dad, where we're going? Like, I don't know, but we're just going to keep driving. We'll get some gas up here at some point. We're just going to keep driving until something looks good. That's not that exciting, right? People like to know the destination they're going. And yet so many companies don't have like a written down vision, like a goal of where they're trying to go or what they're trying to ultimately be. And I can only imagine the employees are just like the kids in the back saying, well, this seems stupid. Like, how do we know if we got there? Well, we don't. We're just going to keep driving. How are we going to know what success looks like? Well, we don't. We're just going to keep working hard. That's really, really lame. And I realized we were being pretty lame. Like, we had something that was cool. People liked Salt Strong. We were creating awesome content. And this would have been in year 3. So we just hit 10 years old. This was 7 years ago. So year 3, we had some momentum. We had the very early beginnings of an insider club. I think we had a couple thousand members. So we had something, but there was not even really like a in my head vision of exactly what this was going to look like. And so I spent a lot of time, I'm talking like the majority of that year, just obsessing over that and reading books about, vision, and realized at the end of the day, I wasn't going to get the answer from a book. That we were doing something that was very unique. we were doing something we felt God called us to do, meaning starting Salt Strong. And there wasn't a blueprint or a manual to say, here's what success looks like for an inshore saltwater fishing club. It just never really had been done before, especially an online club like we were building. And so I don't remember like an aha moment of where I was per se, but I know I was spending a ton of time outside, as I talked about before, just walking around, listening. I still like to wake up really early and just go out there when it's still dark outside. There's something unique about it. When you get up before the sun, I don't know why, it just feels good. Like when you beat the sun, to me, that's like, it almost feels like success. I love that for whatever reason. And I really love going out there. It was our neighborhood that we were living in at the time. And it was just kind of a big circle. And I would just walk it. And I'd be the only person out there. Occasionally you see someone leaving for the airport or something super early. But I'm talking, 4:45, 5 in the morning. And it's just the stars. And depending on the night, the moon lit up really well or not much at all. And I would literally just talk to God. And it was through that process where I would just get little bits and pieces. And I would either, if I had my phone in my pocket, I'd write it down, or I'd go back in the house and kind of take some notes. And that became our 2025 vision. So that was 7 years prior. And then the year 2025 was when it kind of ended. And that finally gave some structure and some clarity to our team members of where we were going. It was very specific. It talked about how many members we were going to have and the impact we were going to have, and that we were going to have a massive organization and have all these coaches and help out with conservation, which we got, the Salt Strong Alliance conservation set up during that time. All these things started lining up that we wrote 7 years ago, which is crazy. And the very last one, so this is 2025 vision. By the end, it was by December 31st, 2025, all these things will happen. And almost all of them have, which is crazy, except the final one. And the final one was that we would acquire the property, the land, right, the dirt, for this fishing theme park. It was the final bullet point on there. And it was on our website. It's still there. It's been updated to 2030 now. And it still hasn't happened, by the way, if you're waiting for me to tell you some exciting news. I hope to share something here in the near future. We're still in October as I'm recording this. Still got time. But the selling of the company Salt Strong, obviously there was a transaction and Luke and I got some cash. That was at least the first time where I legitimately felt like, all right, we could make this happen, right? Before, we just didn't have much cash. If you run a business, especially like ours, that was very heavy on people and inventory, right? I mean, we were always carrying at least $1 million of tackle at any given time. Just, we sell a lot of tackle and you have to have stuff in inventory because it moves fast and it takes forever to have things made. You don't just call someone and say, I need 20,000 prawns tomorrow. All that stuff takes sometimes months. Even though it's made in America, it can take a long time. So you always have to have stuff stocked up. And so we never really felt like we were cash rich, but we felt like we were rich as people, right? In terms of, man, we knew we had something that was special. And so with the sale of our shares of Salt Strong, that finally gave us that feeling that we can do this. So we have something picked out. I can't wait to share more. That's not the whole point of this. But man, if that happens, whoa, how crazy would that be? That was a vision, a dream, a goal that we wrote down 7 years ago, and not having any idea what it would look like or how we would get there. We had no money. We were negative at that point, by the way. That was the first year we started paying ourselves a $30,000 salary. The 2 years prior, we made no money. It was brutal. And so to think about that we had this vision from God, that was from me just walking around in the middle of that old neighborhood every night, and just something kept hitting me about, hey, you need to have this theme park where we're bringing people together, doing the same kind of stuff we're doing online, where we're teaching and uniting people through fishing, but doing it in a real face-to-face place. And the crazy part, look what's happened over the last 7 years. We've obviously gone through a pandemic with COVID that got us really, really crazy, right? In terms of cabin fever and wanting to go out and be around people again, right? After not going to work and going to a lot of the things in churches and stuff that we used to do all the time. And now here we are with this age of AI, and everyone, is got their head down, looking at their phone, not having conversations. I think people deep down, we crave relationships. It's in the Bible. I mean, we need relationships to live. It's healthy. I mean, there's studies we've talked about on Unchurched before about how some of the longest people in terms of longevity in the living have the best and the most relationships. I mean, there is proof in the pudding that we need these relationships, and you can't just have one over the phone and through talking to ChatGPT and Facebook, et cetera. And so here we are, just all these things just lining up perfectly. And in terms of what our society is craving, to be able to go to a place and have fellowship and fishing and do some fun stuff. And the fact we have some cash now to potentially do this if we can find this right property. Like I said, we got a couple in mind right now. And yeah, it's just so wild. And so the more I thought about it, it's like, wow, like, does God prefer us to write down goals? And this is where I'm going kind of with this whole podcast. And I started looking at my past life, and I'm not going to tell you the answer. It's going to be up to you because I don't know the answer. I've never actually met God. He hasn't told me this. So I don't know. But I kept asking myself, man, does God, is he sitting up there? Like, imagine me as a father and my son, and I know he's on the right path or the wrong path. Like, is he up there saying, man, I wish Joe gave him this vision. I wish he would just write it down. So one, he doesn't forget it, but two, that he can obsess over it and pray over it and dream over it and talk to me about it every single day. And for me, the answer is 100% yes. I've kept different notepads of goals I've written down, and ones that are really important like this, especially that go out for a year or more. I've almost hit every single one, which is crazy. I don't know if I'm just a good goal setter or I'm lucky or I got God on my side or what, or maybe it's all the above, but that's bonkers. I mean, almost every one, going back to over, I think it's 14 years of some of these notes and goals that I've written now, where I did obsess over them. I looked at them every single day, just like that book, Think and Grow Rich, talks about. I wrote them down. I prayed on them to God. And these weren't like selfish things like, oh, let me buy a Lamborghini or, have $1 million. There were all things like, the theme park things that were going to help impact others. And I'm not saying it's wrong to have that. I have some of those goals as well. And many of those have been hit before. Meaning like, hey, we want to buy our dream property, which we did. That was a very long-term goal. But this one in particular, when I had what I would call a vision from God, these were all just times I'm out there walking with God and getting very clear visions on what we should be doing and where we are going, just as important. It's like every time I've written it down and prayed on it with God and talking with God every morning, that's part of my ritual. I look at these goals that I have for either the year or a 5-year or 10-year plan and literally talk about them and pray with God every single morning, with maybe a few exceptions, like, if on vacation and taking off early for some excursion. But in general, it's pretty much every single morning. And the magic has happened. I mean, God has performed. I mean, things have fallen into place even when I never thought they would. I mean, I remember, for you guys who listen all the time, it was this year, like 2025, when I did a podcast about kind of talking about the theme park, when I was like, I have no stinking idea how we're going to do this. Like, I feel like time is ticking. And now I'm the opposite. I'm like, well, man, I'm very confident this can happen in the next 3 months, as long as, we can find the right property and strike the right deal. It is wild how quickly that happened. And so let me talk about too, the power and just the magic of these goals. So that goal's been out there for a while, right? 7 years that we're going to acquire this property in 2025. And I realized at some point we needed help scaling I'm going to call it the merchandise part, the tackle part. As I mentioned, we're always sitting on at least $1 million, and we have very few SKUs, meaning the few amount of actual items you could buy. And in perspective, like, we're at 700 SKUs, like that many different items on our fishstrong.com page. And like Sportsman's Guide, who's one of the, part of the company that bought us, they have 100,000. I mean, we're talking night and day difference. And so I knew if we were really going to scale on that, and that means helping out our members, right? That's more things that our members have access to on discounts, more products. I mean, everything from trolling motors and electronics. I mean, really, really cool stuff. And even now hunting and camping and archery and et cetera. And so I knew we needed to have that right partner. And I reached out to a lot of the big boys and talked to all of them. The cool part is they all took calls, and just to see if there was any way to partner. And we really didn't want to sell the company, is the irony. We really just wanted to find a really good tackle partner that could either buy Fish Strong and we could partner with them, or find some way to collaborate. And I went through most of them, and just none of them felt right. They didn't really understand what we were doing. And I don't remember how it came up, but something was like in my feed for Sportsman Guide. And I was like, oh, I remember that company. Like, I remember looking at them quite some time ago. I was going to sign up and just never got around to it because they had some really good deals on some outdoor stuff I was looking at. And so I started looking a little bit more at their site, and I was like, man, they got a lot of stuff on here, and the discounts are great. Let me go to LinkedIn and see if I could find anyone I know that works there. Couldn't, not a single person. I was about to give up, and I was like, I'll just keep digging and just see if there's anyone that's even in a second. They have in LinkedIn, you have connections, second connection. And there were a couple, but they were like, just random people that didn't really, it's tough to even tell if they worked there or not. And the connections they had with my friends were like people I barely even knew, just some random person I had accepted on LinkedIn. So I was about to give up again. So I was like, all right, that's a lost cause. And this one guy popped up, his name was Greg, and he was like a VP. And you could tell like he was pretty active on there. So I was like, what? He probably checks his little messages. And I don't even have the paid version where you can reach out to people that you don't know. So I was like, well, I don't know Greg, but I'll send him an invite and just tell him, hey, I love what you guys are doing at Sportsman Guide. Love to connect. And next day I get a thing, Greg's connected with you. So now if LinkedIn, if you guys know how it works, if you're not a paid member, which I'm not, then you have to be friends to be able to private message someone. So I still don't know his email. I sent him a message and said, hey man, we're Salt Strong, and we have this, tackle company called Fish Strong. And love to see if there's just any way we could just get on a phone call and chat just to see if, we could help you guys out or vice versa. And I think there might be some cool ways we could partner, because I see that you guys are, not so strong like the inshore saltwater side of things, but really big into freshwater fishing and hunting, et cetera. And next day he wrote me an email. I was like, "Hell, dude, your site's awesome. We know exactly who you are. We've been following you guys, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "Let's get on a call." And so that one email, once again, I was about to give up twice. And I think that's also that power of that goal. It's the power of God. The 100% got opened that door. Even Greg, who, I've now got to meet face to face through all this, he was like, dude, that was just bizarre. And he's like, I was about not to reply to you, but something told me I should, because we were just crazy busy with some other stuff that they were going through right now. Like he had a massive, massive project on his desk. And he was like, I was just going to put it off until later to even have a call with you, because we liked you guys and knew who you were, obviously. And a couple of our people are members of Salt Strong. It was like something told me just get on a quick call with them. And here we are. All because of that one, I'll call it blind LinkedIn message that I sent, that they ended up being the perfect partner, better than all the other big names. And I talked to the big ones. We signed NDAs with quite a few of the biggest retailers in the country that you certainly know and probably have shopped at. And none of them got what we were doing. They're like, why would you give discounts? I don't get it. Like, why don't you just charge full price? And why do you spend all this time on content and stuff? Why don't, that it's just different business model. Not to say it's wrong or right. They just didn't get us. And these guys, Sportsman's Guy, did. And when I found out it was owned by a Christian company, I'm like, oh man, this is amazing. So anyhow, I will challenge you, like I've done many, 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 many times. If you have that goal, if you have that dream, if you have that vision, and you do, even if you don't think you do, it's there inside of you. Go outside and do it one morning at 4:45 or 5 before the sun comes up, and just talk to God and see what happens. It is inside of you, and He will plant it inside you. He will bring it out if you pray to Him and you really, really listen. And then once you get it, that dream, that vision, that goal, write it down. I'm telling you, there is something magical that happens. Even I got some friends who struggle with believing in God, but it's really more it's Christianity and Jesus, but they believe that there's something else out there, that there's some higher power. And they even like, man, there's something about every time I write down this goal, like this higher power just opens up all the right doors for me. I'm like, all right, you can call it what you will, but I'm going to call it God. It's tough to explain, but it's also tough to ignore when you see it continue to keep working time and time again. So I would challenge you to do that. I'm obviously writing down a different goal right now, and like, hey, we are going to have this property here the next 3 months, and just praying that God opens up the door. Actually, right before I went on to record this podcast. I was out on the dock praying. A lot of times I'll go down there. I'm just so you guys know, I don't always record these super early on Sunday mornings. Most of the times I pre-record them. And this is when I'm just recording on a late afternoon, late in the week. And so I go down to the dock sometimes, just pray God that gives me good message that I can talk. I mean, it's not easy to sit there and talk about 24, 25 minutes sometimes about this stuff. But I feel like when I do that, when I go down and pray and just relax and meditate and then all of a sudden hit record, it it flows. And right when I was in the middle of doing that, I heard my phone kind of beep over there on the table or vibrate. I turn all my notifications off on my phone in terms of loud ones. It's only on vibrate. And I looked at it, and it was this real estate agent who I dealt with a long, long time ago. I'd completely forgotten his name. And he's like, "Hey, man, I just saw a press release about you guys selling. I know at one point you talked about having this. Look at that, the goal. He knew about it. He's like, I know at one point you talked about, having this big, fishing theme park, and he only deals in like really big tracts of ranch land and farmland and stuff like that. And he's like, I'd love to help you find that dream property. So don't know if it'll happen with him or not, but how cool. And I'm sitting there praying about all this. And because I had the written down goal, the dude knew about it. I haven't talked to this guy in years, literally. And he still remembered that goal, whether I told him or not, I don't even remember. But the fact it was out there in writing on our website, he definitely knew about it to the point he wanted to call me or text me and let me know. So hope that's helpful. Find your goals, dream, both at night and, when you're just walking around. You don't have to be sleeping to do it. And then when you get that vision, big or small, long-term, short-term, doesn't matter. Even if it's just something that's going to happen the next month, write it down, pray over it, talk about it with God every single morning. You will be blown away with the magic that happens following that. So love you guys. If you have any thoughts, questions, hit me up, joe@saltstrong.com, joe@saltstrong.com. Love hearing from all you guys. And just know that Unchurched will continue on. Thank you guys. Love you. Talk to you on the next episode.
Want more fishing tips, shortcuts, and tools so you can catch more fish per trip? Then head over to saltstrong.com now and join the movement. Tight lines, and thanks for listening.